Hello interwebs and welcome to my channel. And don't I look all professional today? What with my collar and everything? I feel so adult. Oh my. Anyways, weird southern accents aside, we're actually going to be talking about something UK based, or at least something that came out of the UK, because I want to talk specifically about a rumor that came out, a credible rumor, not like a rumor that came out of YouTube or 4chan or 8chan or 16chan or, whatever, number of chans that we're up to at this point. A credible rumor that was reported on by the Hollywood Reporter and other trades that Warner Brothers, I don't know why I said Warner Brothers was planning to look into making a Harry Potter TV series to air on their HBO Max platform. And I want to talk about that show as well as the other Harry Potter media that's being planned to come out, namely the upcoming Fantastic Beasts movies, as well as the Hogwarts Legacy video game by Avalanche Software, in terms of what should we do with them? How should we feel about those works, especially in light of J.K. Rowling's transphobic views and her views that have been expressly harmful to the transgender community? And by the way, we are going to be taking that viewpoint as a given within this video, that J.K. Rowling's views are harmful to the transgender community. I'm not here to condemn J.K. Rowling as a transphobe. As I've talked about in other videos, I think it's more helpful to discuss when actions are transphobic, not necessarily when someone is a transphobe, because that just isn't helpful or conducive to the conversation. But I do believe her words have been expressly harmful, not only in just being ideologically wrong and harmful to the trans community, and I've done a video on that, but also influencing policy and decisions and politics within both the United States and the UK when it comes to trans people, and especially in the UK with a lot of anti-transgender legislation going through there, who are citing or being influenced by J.K. Rowling as someone who is a very influential figure within the pop culture and just mind share of people around the world, and someone that a lot of people look up to. If we take that as a given, how are we to feel about the upcoming Harry Potter media, as I've stated before, the movie, potential TV show, and video game? Well, I've spoken about before in other videos on this about what Harry Potter has meant to me. Harry Potter will and always shall be a series that means a lot to me, that influenced me. It is intrinsically linked to who I am. On this channel, I talk a ton about Star Trek and why I love Star Trek, because Star Trek influenced how I look at the world and how I try to make myself a better person. It's sort of the values that I hold myself up to. But Harry Potter is almost as influential as Star Trek was in that. It taught me so much about disenfranchisement of different groups, bigotry, hatred, but it also inspired me as well with things like the magic world, and inspired my creativity and my desire to believe that the world is this beautiful, magical place. So Harry Potter will always mean that to me. And the books and movies are still part of my life today. I rewatch the movies every once in a while, even despite everything that's been coming out about J.K. Rowling and things that she said. And I still listen to the books on tape because they help me sleep at night. I have a lot of anxiety, and my mind quiets down when I listen to things or listen to stories. And Harry Potter is just a familiar story that, comforts me when I can't sleep, which is fairly often. And honestly, I want to be able to share the Harry Potter books with my kids maybe one day, when and if I ever have children. That's a whole different topic going on there. But when I look out at the upcoming slate of Harry Potter media, they just make me deeply, deeply uncomfortable to just feel that Warner Brothers, mainly Warner Brothers, is continually pumping out media based on a franchise that is still being led by a woman who so expressly targets who I am as a trans person and the trans community and vulnerable trans people in the United Kingdom. I mean, capitalism is going to capitalism. The company has a big franchise and they want to pump out and get as much money out of it as they possibly can. In all honesty, I would be entirely here for it without J.K. Rowling involved. Like, the Fantastic Beasts movies, for all their flaws, were something that I really enjoyed. I mean, I named my cat Newt, for heaven's sakes, after Newt Scamander, because Newt Scamander's a Hufflepuff. He's clearly on the autism spectrum like me. He's an adorable, kind, caring boy. And he's also played by Eddie Redmayne, who played a trans woman in The Dangerous Girl, which means I can kind of headcanon myself into being Newt Scamander a little bit in a kind of weird way, but it works for me, so don't tell me otherwise. Though that project, most specifically, is the one that makes me most uncomfortable, because those are being written expressly by J.K. Rowling. She is the person whose voice is most heard in sort of the creativity of the story of those narratives. And I don't want to see a woman who harms the trans community have a voice in the creativity of a work. And this isn't necessarily a censorship issue, it's just I don't think she should be given this platform to write those movies. Because as we've seen with her other books, like her Robert Galbraith detective series, the book she writes as a pseudonym under a male name, which is the ultimate form of irony, in my opinion, for someone who's talking about changing genders and having issues with all of that. We've seen that she is willing to fall back on transphobic tropes, harmful tropes like having a serial killer who, dresses up as a woman because it's an element of the deranged mind, which again leads into transphobic tropes that are just frankly old and tired at this point, not even all that creative. And so it just bothers me that she may put stuff like that into a film that will get many eyeballs on it. We'll have many people who may be influenced or inspired by these works. So the Fantastic Beasts movies, I'm just straight up not going to support anymore. I can't support them in any way, shape, or form. But then I look at Hogwarts Legacy, which is the video game by Avalanche Software, and that's a game that I've wanted for so long. I've wanted to have a game that took me to Hogwarts, like an RPG-level Hogwarts game. And it's being made without much input by J.K. Rowling. Now, I'm not deluding myself into believing the statement that the studio put out saying that she has no influence whatsoever. I mean, it's a game. She's going to have to approve some of it, but clearly that is a project that she does not have the most creative influence over. The same thing with the Harry Potter TV series. I would presume that would be written by someone other than her and without her sort of direct creative influence on it, though I'm sure she would be an executive producer or have some influence on the creative direction of those stories. So there is a little bit of a distance from those works on the Harry Potter franchise, but she still would be profiting directly off of the success of those films. But it's also hard for me because, like I said, I would be excited about those things normally. At the very least, the video game, the TV series, I'd have to see what it was, but the video game I am excited for, but I don't feel comfortable helping to continue to give money to this woman who harms my community. But all of this thought is stuff that we kind of had a conversation about, months ago when J.K. Rowling first came out about these transphobic views. Like, a lot of us said, like, we're done with the Harry Potter franchise, we'll still enjoy it, keep it as part of our heart, but we won't help it going forward. But the recent announcement of the TV series, one, showed me that Warner Brothers is going to continue with it anyways, even if there is diminishing returns, but there is also potentially an audience still for the Harry Potter franchise. Like, I presumably think the Hogwarts Legacy video game will probably do fairly well despite everything that J.K. Rowling has said. With that in mind, I have to think about, what does this mean that the Harry Potter franchise is going to continue, and how should I proceed within that? The first thing that I want to think about is what I would need for the Harry Potter franchise to happen in the back end to make me feel comfortable. As I said, J.K. Rowling still has creative influence over all of these works to varying different degrees. And I think about something like Star Trek, where there have been creators on Star Trek who I have found to be particularly harmful or problematic. Rick Berman. Sorry, something in my throat. Even despite some of the problematic creators behind Star Trek, I am still able to love and fully invest in what Star Trek is. And the reason being is Star Trek is a franchise made by multiple people. Even if I learned today that Gene Roddenberry, the creator of Star Trek, was the biggest transphobe, that he apparently was like, I hate trans people and I want them all to die. He said something really, really terrible like that. I could still even like things that he had his name directly on, namely like the original series of Star Trek or Star Trek the Motion Picture or early seasons of Star Trek The Next Generation. And I guess technically all the works, but those are the ones that he had the most creative control and influence on. Because those mediums are inherently collaborative. Every single thing that Gene Roddenberry worked on was also created by other people. Like the original series, Gene Kuhn, DC Fontana were collaborators in helping to create what that show was. We would not have Star Trek today without those people. Same thing with the motion picture and The Next Generation. There were many voices behind those different iterations of the franchise besides Gene Roddenberry's. And while his was a big influence on that, I would still feel somewhat comfortable enjoying those works, and especially seeing that the franchise has evolved beyond him. Whereas Harry Potter is something that started out with just J.K. Rowling's voice from its very impetus as books. And yes, it expanded out with the movies and the Fantastic Beasts movies to have other creative collaborators like the screenwriter for the original Harry Potter movies, as well as, the actors and producers and directors that all came in to work on those films. But still, the main story being told between the movies and Fantastic Beasts have all been J.K. Rowling's stories. The Hogwarts Legacy TV show would be a bit different because she wouldn't have that creative control, but she is still someone who is in charge of the franchise as a whole and would directly profit off of it. And so I'm left in this complicated space of not wanting to invest in these things, but also knowing that I should be able to talk about them. I should be able to analyze them. I should be able to critically engage with them, considering they're going to be something talked about in the sphere that I am interested in. I might also be a voice that people would listen to as a trans person if I did videos on these games and TV shows, and might be able to give a perspective on them that might otherwise be lacking because other trans people or other voices don't want to engage with these works because of what J.K. Rowling has said. And so I'm left sitting in this sort of difficult place within my brain. I obviously don't want to support her, but I also want to be part of the conversation because I think it's important to be part of the conversation in general, to be able to put my voice as a trans person out into the world about what these works are saying and what they're doing and how they can influence people about trans people or just influence people in general. And honestly, I think a trans voice is more important than ever in analyzing these works because I'm honestly really just tired in seeing so many articles on big news sites like The Hollywood Reporter who discuss like the new Harry Potter show on HBO Max just simply mention that J.K. Rowling has harmful views to the trans community in a small footnote at the bottom of the page. I think we need to talk about the Harry Potter works, maybe not exclusively focusing on J.K. Rowling's views about trans people, but I think that needs to be a part of the conversation going forward within the context of every work that she makes. As fair or unfair as you may think that is, I think that is a necessary conversation that we need to have involving the Harry Potter franchise. It's sad that that is the case, at least as long as she is involved with the Harry Potter franchise, is unfortunately just going to have to be part of the conversation. And I really don't want it to be largely ignored within the larger discourse because people are uncomfortable with it or don't want to focus on it. We should look directly at the things that make us uncomfortable, even when the works that they are in are something that we might enjoy. And I'm not necessarily going to assume they're a net negative. I'm sure there are many beautiful and wonderful things that will be in these works, regardless of their quality. And there'll be many interesting things to talk about. Crimes of Grindelwald was a bad movie, but there was a lot of stuff to talk about within that film. There was critiques and discussions to be had. I even think things that are bad are worthy of discussion because they help us learn. Wonder Woman 1984 was a movie that I generally despise, but I thought it was a movie that we could learn from. And so I think we can do that from the Harry Potter novels and books. And so ultimately my decision is going to be this. I feel like I need to be involved in the conversation on Harry Potter, but I'm not going to help J.K. Rowling financially in any way, shape, or form. I'm not going to see the Fantastic Beasts movies in theaters. I may watch them when a friend has them or other ways that don't financially benefit J.K. Rowling, and we'll leave it there. The video game I'm going to buy used, and while I'm sad that that won't help the developer, at least it won't be directly benefiting J.K. Rowling, but it will allow me to stay in on the conversation because, like I said, I think it is important to have discussions about these works. And I ask the same thing of all of you. If you want to engage with the Harry Potter works, which I'm not going to tell you what to do there. I'm not saying you need to send Harry Potter out of your life. If you do that, and that's something you feel you need to do in order to progress with your life and you can't engage with it anymore because of J.K. Rowling, I totally understand that. But if you do wish to continue to engage with the Harry Potter franchise, all I ask is that you just do the work to learn why J.K. Rowling is harmful to the trans community. It's important, as always, to remember the context in which a work sits. I'm never going to tell someone you can't watch it, you can't be involved in it, but just understand where it sits within the context of the world, because all fiction sits within the context of the world. And I think it's important that we acknowledge that. So always do the work to just try to understand where trans people are coming from and listen to trans people and any minority group who is directly involved in any work about their feelings on what the work is saying, whether or not you like the work or not. And again, that's up to you. I'm never here to tell anyone what to dislike or like about something. I will just give my opinions on it. But you always have to critically engage with that work. And that's what we try to do here on this channel. And so thank you so much for watching this. I hope this discussion was helpful for other people, because for me, it's a wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey ball that I just need to kind of knot over in my brain. Like I said, I don't have definitive answers on it. That's just how I'm feeling. So I'd love to hear all your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Also, I have a Patreon in which you can help me out on. I'm trying to do this job full-time by the end of the year. So please, if you can give even a little bit on Patreon, you get yourself cool perks, and it really, really helps me out financially. So thank you so much for all of that. But beyond all of that, I hope that you, as always, live long and prosper. Thank you so much to all of my patrons who are helping me achieve my dream of doing this full time, and especially a thank you to Catherine Lambeth, Miranda Janelle, Ashley Allen Bokikio, Eli Bergmas, Ashlyn Solstice, Michael D., Greg Gillum, Stephen Kleinard, Chamomile T., Ulysses the Pagan, Randy Thompson, Boyd and Mary Beth Earl, Wellington Marcus, Stefan Schuhart, Wayne Twitchell, Roar, Ish the Mad, Dominic Noble, Buttoneer, John Steele, Michael Beam, Jedi Indiana Jones, William Stewart, Gavin Robinson, Nathan Olson, BBD, Amanda Ronye Adanya, The Sir Spence, Jason Knott, Hannah F., Andrew Jorgensen, Maeve, Jasmine, Skylar Gray, Sean Piper, Andrew K., Bree Beecher, Subraxis, Jane Packard and Chloe Dollar, Nathan Steele, Tiffany Danger, Mari Neckar, Wendizzle Bizzle, Bush, W. Randy Eady, Mark the Edge, Piston Twisted Garage, Geek Filter, Gretchen Badger, Polly Mina, Jean Mithune, Sarah Bystam, Lysa, Din, Jacob Tovar, Celestial Dawn, Lily, Andrew Lamoureux, Raina C., Zone 1 Librarian, Michael Hardy, Corey Honkanen, and Vale Dunn. Thank you. You are all beautiful, beautiful people.